Hi, this is Dina for Splitcoaststampers. In this video, I'll show you how to make matted frames for your card fronts using 2 or more nesting dies. I'm going to begin with a double mat for a standard size A2 card, so I'm cutting my cardstock first. I have 2 coordinating colors, and the panel that shows as the mat and border will be the larger panel. I'm cutting that first from the lighter cardstock at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And then the front panel of the card will be my darker cardstock, and that's 1/4 inch less in each direction. So I'm cutting that at 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. You can adjust these measurements to any card size. Just cut your base panel to the size of your card and cut the front panel 1/4 inch less in each direction. Here I'm using some repositionable adhesive to tack the 2 panels together in the middle so that they stay centered together when I make my first cut. Next, I want to lay the dies onto the card just to be sure they'll nest together correctly and also that they'll fit on the card front. Once I've determined the die placement, I'm going to remove the larger die and I'll cut the smaller opening first. So I'm taping that die in place to be sure it doesn't slide around when I run it through the die cutting machine. The die does need to cut through both layers of cardstock, so be sure that your cardstock is a reasonable weight and not too heavy for your die. Here's the cut piece, and you can see that the die has cut through both layers. I'm going to set the bottom layer aside for my second cut. I'm centering the larger die around the cut opening on my front panel, and then I'll tape that in place to run it through my die cutting machine. Here I've made my second cut, and that cut has removed this narrow border from my first opening, and that's what's going to create the double mat around my focal image when my card is completed. If you want, you can use the cutout pieces that came from your oval opening or whatever opening you've made to embellish another card. You can see that they'll puzzle together just perfectly, and you'll have a shape with a border around it that's perfect for another card front. Here's my completed card, and I really like the way that accent border around the focal image just brings out different colors in the image and completes the look of the card. Matting a card with 3 or more layers is really similar to the double mat. You just need to make sure that you use lighter weight paper so that your die will cut all the way through. On this card I have 3 layers. The bottom layer is lightweight cardstock and the other 2 are thinner paper. I've adhered them together temporarily, and I've laid out my dies to be sure they'll all fit with the placement that I want. I'm taping my smallest die in place, and I'm going to cut with the smallest die first. That one again needs to cut through all 3 layers. The smallest opening will be on the bottom layer when my card is done, and it acts as a guide for the other cuts that I'm going to make. For the next cut, I'm going to remove the bottom layer and set it aside, so I'm just cutting through 2 layers now. Using my next largest die, I'm going to frame the opening I just cut and tape the die in place to run it through my die cutting machine. So here's that layer after cutting, and this is what it looks like with the first layer that I cut, so you can see how that mat is building up. Again, I'm going to remove the bottom layer, which leaves me with just the top layer to cut this time. Using my largest die, I'm going to center it around the opening to make my final cut. With all my layers prepared, all that's left to do is adhere them together and assemble the card. Here's the card I made with that panel. The multiple mats really draw your eye in, and they're a great way to show off a small image. One more variation to finish out. I just wanted to encourage you to look at the dies that you have and experiment with using 2 dies of different shapes rather than 2 dies from the same set. Just be sure that the smaller one fits inside the shape of the larger one, and you'll be fine. I really hope this technique will give you some ideas for your card layouts and will also help you see your shape dies in a new way. Thank you so much for watching.